What's going on, King of Kings family? It is day 15 of our Acts campaign, reading one chapter a day in the book of Acts, starting January 1st, running through February 1st, skipping Sundays. And we are in Acts chapter 15, and I gravitated to verses 5 through 11, where we read about how circumcision was being attempted, at least, to be forced on the Gentile believers by some overly zealous Christians, some overly zealous religious people who could not imagine a world where circumcision was not critical to faith. That was the world they had grown up in. That was the world that they were formed in. And they could not imagine that it was possible to be a person of faith without circumcision. But uniformity was not what was required. What Jesus really does is brings about unity. And in this case, circumcision no longer had any power because it was no longer the thing that imparted the covenant on God's people. That baptism was now the place in which the covenant that we have with God is imparted. And so it wasn't essential for the Gentiles to be circumcised. What was essential was for them to leave their old life behind. And that included some of the worship practices that are prescribed against in this passage. That they were to follow Jesus, and that was what was it, because it was by grace that we are saved. And I think if you've been around church for any length of time, if you've ever served in church leadership, a phrase that is not uncommon, although I'm grateful that I don't hear it a whole lot at King of Kings, but a phrase that's not uncommon in church is, "But this is how we've always done it." And this happens because there's meaning and there's value tied up in how we've always done it. What we often forget is that there was a point when the thing that we've always done wasn't the thing that was always done. That there was a point when that thing was started, and the reason it was started was because it was based on the best wisdom of the time. But I think we can all agree that the world has changed, and there's new wisdom that we have to pay attention to, and that can feel threatening, particularly for folks whose faith was really formed on the way things were always done. Just as the Pharisees, their faith was really formed on circumcision. And so it felt like a threat to say, we don't need to do circumcision anymore, because that's not where the covenant is imparted. And yet it was the new wisdom that was found in the grace of Jesus that said that it was by grace people were saved. And so that new wisdom had to take precedent. And so I wonder what the new wisdom is that we need to pay attention to. The world that we live in has changed over the last 10 to 15 years, radically so. And what are the things that we do in our life together that we can't really expect those beyond our walls who don't yet know Jesus to take part in? How can we shed our desire for uniformity and focus on the unity that is actually essential, that's found in the grace of Jesus? My prayer would be that God would give us the faith to be willing to sacrifice everything but the gospel for the sake of the gospel. That's really the call of discipleship, and that is the call that God has placed on our church. And so that's my prayer today, because that's scary, and it feels a little threatening, and yet God is present with us in it, and will see us through whatever it is that needs to take shape in order for us to be a witness in this world that we find ourselves in. So that's what I got for today. Have an awesome day, and we'll see you tomorrow. God bless.